Hello and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host Bryan. We're going to continue on with this week's theme of jazz appreciation, checking out music that is jazz adjacent. Sometimes we'll be listening to some very traditional swing, other times we'll be checking out some jazz fusion and everything in between. Today we're going to be looking at the artist GYARI, possibly. The track is called Repeat, and it's 67 minutes long. Let's just dive in, I suppose. See what this is all about. So that's certainly Vocaloid, right? I don't know, dude. Those ghost notes sounded so strange as their volume wasn't any different. I keep going back and forth on whether I'm actually enjoying this or not. Okay. I think I am veering towards the side of not enjoying this though. It's missing most of what I love out of jazz and instead is just the sound of jazz. But I know once I say what I'm going to say about this in the analysis, I'm sure people are going to call me a gatekeeper. loving the wavy production on the organ here. It almost feels like there's ducking on it that's coming into place from the bass. It's just incredibly distracting. A fun little bit of hocket right there between the organ and the piano. Go again with that obtrusive or intrusive production. Okay, that's fun modularity. Dude, this production is going to be the end of me, though. I cannot stand that organ. The piano sounds great. The basses, well, the bass and drums are a little too artificial for me, but I'm fine with them. That electric organ sound is grating. And I've been muted. Total transparency. I can't believe we're not even at the halfway point. It feels like I've been here for 3 hours already. And I think a lot of that comes down to the fact that everything's just so incredibly similar. For a song called Repeat, I don't think we've actually had any one-to-one returning to an idea in full to actually repeat something. But everything just sounds so similar. It might as well be repeating. And that's just not making for an interesting thing. 6, 10, 12 minutes of this, I think was fine, but I had my fill a while ago and there's still over 30 minutes left. The longer I listen to it, the more that I start honing in on small things that wouldn't really upset me in a smaller exposure. But it's like staring at a picture for an hour and you start to see the imperfections to it. Whereas if you take a quick glance, that looks pretty cool, and then you're just done. The production, but also the programming of the bass and the drums are really pulling a lot of the humanity out of this track for me. It's starting to feel very inauthentic. And when you mix that with my dislike for the production on this this electric organ over here, there's really only one instrument I really enjoy, and that's the piano. It's what sounds the most natural, but I have 30 minutes to find something else that's probably going to start nagging me on that too, so... I really hate this organ though. GYARI, if you're watching this, I mean no ill will. You're obviously really good at this. you've mastered this craft of making this type of music, this sort of digital, jazzy, digestible stuff, and your chordal modulation is pretty good too. So this is just, I'm not the audience for this, and 67 minutes is a lot to listen to something that I'm just not grooving with. I need some modulation on that cymbal, something. Pitch variance, volume variance. It just being locked in on this one velocity all the time. It's that kid just repeating the word dad over and over and over. I'm convinced that if there's any percussion that is on every single downbeat, it should just be abolished in this track. We have no need for such repetitive sounds. Quantize or unquantize, put variance into the velocity, something. I'm really trying to focus on this piano because there's some cool stuff happening in it. But it is so hard with this ride cymbal and wood block trying to dominate my attention. Now the warbly organ's back. That is used, that is like the transition on this track. cut out everything, just use the Vocaloids, do a catchy syncopated melody, and then move into the next idea. This thing exists on such short patterns, but it doesn't repeat anything one-to-one. It's not like I could sing anything back. Nothing is catchy enough and drilled into me like a pop chorus would be. But it's all just built off of the same backbone, the same blueprints. This is a neat differentiation. We have some texture work. 40 minutes into the track, doing something interesting. Well, I should say different. I don't know that I'm too enthused about it, but I might just be on edge because of having listened to this for 40 minutes. So that's certainly affecting my appreciation for it. I am not enjoying myself. Interesting, I am hearing a jazzy interpretation of the Royal Road progression. Does dance around though. We have some of this chord progression focused music, but especially when we get to the solo sections, we move away from chord focused music into mode focused music, which in the realm of jazz is modal jazz. And that's what I meant earlier, that whoever composed this, whether GYARI is a person or a group and there's someone within that composed it, they have a strong understanding of jazz and melodic writing. This just isn't my cup of tea. They're clearly skilled though. Oh no, they've turned the Vocaloid into the repeating sounds. So there is velocity used on the piano and the bass, varying velocity. It's just the drums we don't hear that much of. Wow. Oh, what is that? All my favorite things? Yeah, my favorite things. I just kind of snuck that in there, huh? I enjoyed that section more. The counterpoint was very well written, but poorly executed. Some auxiliary hand drums back there now. Okay, why not? Why not? There's 10 minutes left. Let's throw a traditional clave in there. What I was enjoying out of this track is being slowly stripped out of it. And I don't know what we're listening to anymore.
3, 2, 1, go!
At least there's a slight return to form here. Well, I made it through it. And if you did too, give yourself a pat on the back. Hopefully you enjoyed that more than I did. Let's start with the positive, because honestly, I'm not a big fan of tearing down music, and I'm going to try to keep myself from ranting on this one simply because I think it's pretty clear that was not for me. I'm not the audience for this, and I think it's easier to come out of something with stronger appreciation when it's shorter. If you'd given me 3, 5, even 10 minutes of that, like I'd mentioned earlier, yeah, I'd be like, that's not for me, but here's some things that did really great. But being within that for over an hour, that is a long amount of time to listen to something that you're just not grooving with. It really starts to grate on you, and it's really easy to slip into cynical conversation. So I do want to start with the positive, and it's probably going to be a short analysis. Otherwise, I'll just be here talking about some stuff that ain't even worth talking about. I think positive stuff. The jazz sections are done really well. The solos that we have on the organs, on the bass, on the piano, on I think it was a guitar of some sort that we got in the back third of this track. They were really well done. Nice movement to them, nice cadence and flow, a really strong showcasing of harmonic knowledge, of chord theory. We can see both key-based composition, which is more traditional for jazz, and then more modal-based composition, which you would typically see in modal jazz, which is typically based off of more progressive styles of jazz like bebop. Hearing modal jazz within something light and digestible like this isn't totally uncommon, but it is a little less common. And I thought it was kind of nice to see that fluidity. We also have genre fluidity here as well as we move between swing and Latin and blues and rock. Honestly, jazz fusion I think would be a good descriptor for some of this. There is, and even electronic music. There's some trance dance stuff going on towards the end too. So there's quite a bit of variety on this track, on this album. Yeah, this is the only song on the album. This is technically an album review, I suppose. The thing is that as many different styles as there are, the song also is focused, for better or worse. We might have a bluesier section, a loungier section, a swingier section, but generally speaking, a lot of it ends up feeling very similar. Now, part of this may just be that it is a very long track. If you crammed all these styles into a 5-minute song, that would feel incredibly dynamic, maybe even too diverse to be cohesive. But here there's plenty of time to stay within a style or to jump between styles a little more rapidly for the length of time, but still being able to stay with an idea for a longer amount of time. I don't know the best way to describe that, because it is simultaneously what keeps it semi-interesting. The end of this track felt nothing like the beginning of this track. Once we hit that very digital drum kick, bass kick sound, and then we had the repeating vocal lines on top of that, it turned into trance electronic music. And yeah, that's very different from the loungy ideas or bluesy ideas we saw at the beginning of the song, or even the jazzier concept that came right after that. But also, that was the only time we heard that section too. A majority of this track jumps between sort of a jazz fusion, a swing, and a blues. Even the Latin part is something that came up very sparingly on here. So we do have movement between styles, and I still think it's pretty cool that this person understands these styles well enough to incorporate them in a way that feels authentic to the style itself. It doesn't feel like the equivalent of, a metal band trying to make a classical album where it ends up just feeling like metal music that's played on violins or something like that. These actually feel like we're moving between these different styles of music and different subgenres of jazz. Um, and again, it's not just key based, there's also the modal based element. So there's a decent amount of variety on here, and I think that we get a pretty wide showcasing of the composer's skills. And from that perspective, I do want to give props to this. Creating this is not something that I think anybody can just pick up and do. This requires immense knowledge in order to create and craft. I do want to give a round of applause or a pat on the back or compliments to however you want to phrase it to the composer. They have a lot of knowledge and they used it all in palatable ways. I can't really hear too much in here or maybe even anything in here that feels wrong or bad. Everything is good. But I'm sure if I have this praise for the composition, why didn't I enjoy myself? I'm sure people want to know that. And I'm going to try to keep this brief. I don't want it dominating the analysis segment. But this just is lacking what I would want to listen to this type of music for. I'm trying my best not to gatekeep here, but what's really interesting to me is that despite the more complex composition that comes through in places, it kind of feels the same way that smooth jazz feels to me. It's lacking the humanity of jazz. Part of that is the production of all of this. The drums do not feel natural. The bass does not feel natural. The organ feels natural-esque. I suppose it is an electric organ, so it having more digital components to its timbre and coloring is kind of par for the course, but something about it just never quite clicked for me, and the production on it is grating. I just could not stand it. A lot of this does come down to the production, though. If that is a real bass, it doesn't sound very bassy. It sounds like a synthesizer simulating an electric bass that's been fingerpicked. It's close, but it's just not quite there. The drums have locked velocity through most of this, and that's just, I get it now. When it comes to electronic and pop music, I typically don't mind, programmed drums that lack that human, that variance to it. And even when it comes to metal music that uses programmed drumming, typically, again, it doesn't really bother me too often, but often I will see people in the comments say, no, I hate the trigger drums, I hate the programmed drums, they sound gross within the rest of the song. And I was like, okay, well, everyone's got their biases, their opinions. That's cool. I don't share that one, but I get it for this. I don't know if it's because to me, jazz is an acoustic genre, and this is, as far as I can tell, so far devoid from that. And I'm really missing that acoustic element, which again kind of makes it feel gatekeepery, because jazz is a style of music. How you perform it shouldn't really matter too much against the notes themselves. So this is something I've been battling with myself, is this jazz? And ultimately, I think it just came down to who cares? I'm not going to sit here and debate what jazz is because that just feels stupid. So I'm not going to go into that discussion. But I will say that for me personally, I think the lack of human sounding qualities to these instruments really hinders my enjoyment of it. And a lot of that comes down to even the piano, which I said felt the most natural, but also had a weird lack of resonance to it. Notes ended without the note ringing out, almost as if the piano is constantly muted in an inhuman way and in an unnatural way. I don't even know if you could physically mute a piano like this where there's no tone ringing out after anything. But also the notes seem to come out of nowhere too. It's missing the beginning of the attack. It's a subtle thing, but again, like I mentioned, you give me 67 minutes to just scrutinize a picture and I will tell you every single thing wrong with it. And that's the same thing that happened here. I had a lot of time to listen to these tones and textures and timbres and just, ah, man, it just never ends up feeling right to me. I think the Vocaloid parts are hit and miss too. In the past, I've mentioned that I enjoy Vocaloids, but primarily for parts that would be difficult or impossible, as far as impossible can be for a human. We've listened to some stuff that humans shouldn't be able to do, and one person ends up singing it. So impossible feels like a stretch at this time. Someone will push their body to perform a song. But for me, that doesn't, I mean, this doesn't fall under that. And so it just creates an artificiality to the track that isn't necessary. And I don't know, man. There's very little interplay between the instruments. One of the things I love about jazz is during solo sections, listening to the rhythm section play and dance around and dance with the soloist, to hear them communicate, speaking the language of music. I didn't get that here. This didn't feel live to me at all. It didn't feel alive. It felt very synthetic, which it is. And there were some sections where the drummer will introduce a rhythm and then the piano, I think it was the piano. This was like 40 minutes in, I don't remember. The piano started playing along that same rhythm and it helped them build into the next idea. And I was, okay, you know, there are places where the instruments will communicate, but it's such a rarity on it. And then I'm listening to the solos, and there was that really cool counterpoint towards the end of the track. And I had mentioned during the reaction, I was like, I really wish I could enjoy this, but I'm just not connecting to it. And that's when I realized that the performance doesn't feel human either. You can feel the electricity in the instruments based on the way people play it. It is a minor thing, but the more that you listen to people play live instruments, the more that you can hear how things change. Whether it's how hard they're hitting the keys, not purposefully, but unintentionally because they are getting excited. Whether it's the ways that the air as moving through a trumpet might become warmer as the body heat rises because they're getting excited, or maybe they're putting more air through it, or maybe there's a little bit more spit in it. The mouth creates saliva that gets pushed through instruments. As gross as it is, a lot of brass instruments have spit valves to release the spit that is in the instrument. It's going to change the sound of it, the timbre of it. These elements don't appear in here. It's the vocals holding out notes for much longer than they would. It's the vocals sounding digitized. I think if I had approached this as a jazzy pop track that had some fusion elements in it and occasionally soloed, and I knew it was Vocaloid coming in, I could look at it as an electronic song doing some neat jazzy stuff. I still don't know if I'd enjoy it at the end of the day. It is still 67 minutes of pretty much the same idea throughout, but I think coming at it, Jazz Appreciation Week, I'm looking for some cool jazz music. I'm listening for some humanity. I mean, that's what jazz is to me. I think it's one of the reasons why I prefer to watch it live. The studio albums, they can give me some of that, but not all of it. It's the electricity of the genre. Maybe it's also because I play this music personally. Like, I have a connection to jazz. I don't know. It just doesn't feel like jazz music to me. It is jazzy. It has the elements, the sound of jazz, but it is lacking that humanity. And here I go with my gatekeepering garbage. So I think that's a good place to cut this off. Yeah, I enjoyed this more than some other stuff y'all have made me listen to that was long that I just didn't gel with, simply because there are good melodies in here. There's cool harmonic elements to dig into. It is not a bad song in any manner, in any stretch of the imagination. It's just not for me. I couldn't connect with it. And the production. All right, I'm going to wrap it up. I'm repeating myself. These are my thoughts on GYARI's Repeat. again, Gyari, if you happen to come across this for some reason or another, keep doing what you're doing. Don't take any of this to heart. If it's easier, just think I'm being a hater right now. I'm just not the audience for this. But you're killing it, dude. 100%. For everyone else, what are your thoughts? Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? Do you want to correct anything that I said or anything like that? Go ahead and put those thoughts down into the comment section. Above that, put them in the comment section. There's a description box, a link tree. It's this thing. Like, subscribe, ring the bell. I don't even want to record the rest of the day, dude. I'm drained. Until next time, I'll be back tomorrow, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I hope. I hope. Yeah. I'll catch y'all next time.